where we are bringing you the sentencing hearing for an unusual case. An 18-year-old stabbed a family's pet chihuahua. Kielee Sonnemann, who was babysitting the family's 4-year-old daughter at the time, pleaded guilty yesterday to stabbing their pet chihuahua with a pair of scissors and then putting a bag over his head. The dog, named Batman, was found in the next day in the middle child's bedroom, hidden under a pile of bloody blankets. The parents also noticed that their youngest daughter's hair had been cut using the same scissors that had been used to stab the dog. A little bit of a bizarre case. She's facing sentencing of up to 5.5 years. Let's get you in jail. Let's get you back into court now, where Kielee Sonnemann is addressing the court before the judge has to decide what's next.
I just want to start by saying I am truly sorry for the harm that I have caused your family. It is a horrible thing that I have done. I don't know why I did it, but I am very sorry. I'm sorry that your kids had to witness that. I'm sorry you had to witness that. I do not want you to live in fear. I still care about your family, and I don't want anything else to happen to you. And for your dog, I love that dog as my own. As you mentioned, he knew when you were sad, and he would always come by you. He would do the same thing to me.
Ms. Sonnemann is here after having been convicted of mistreatment of animals causing death by use of a dangerous weapon. And to begin with, it is clear that this is a serious offense because the penalties are significant. We discussed this morning at the this afternoon at the change of plea, initially that the penalties were 3 years and 6 months. However, they're actually 5.5 years of initial confinement and 2 years of extended supervision. And why is that important? It's important because the legislature has spoken. It represents the people, and the people are at risk from crimes like this. Notably, there are enhancers to mistreatment of animals. There is the causing death, and there's also the use of a dangerous weapon that specified what actually happened here. And the charges reflect the defendant's conduct. On that day, earlier this year, the defendant had met with a treatment provider. She was having a difficult day, and there were things that, in her own words, caused her to lash out. And there's not really been a full explanation of what happened, in part because the defendant doesn't remember it. But we know what the results were. And the results were extremely violent and resulted in the death of the victim's family pet, a chihuahua named Batman. We've heard victims A, B, and D speak in court today. They have described the trauma that they experienced in their home, in a place where they have every reason to believe that they will be safe. They've experienced guilt because of what their children have been exposed to. They have experienced trauma as a result of participating in a court case, and coming to court here today, and reliving the trauma. This case is absolutely devastating, both because of the loss of trust and the loss of the relationship between the defendant and the victim's family. where she had known them for several years because the victim's family lost a beloved family pet who you don't really have to be an expert in animal psychology to know that family pets are emotional touchstones for adults and for children. And that has been taken from them. There was a little bit of insight when the defendant indicated to law enforcement at the time of her interview she was irritated with the dog, that she sometimes gets lashes out when she gets mad. She indicated she may have kicked the dog. And what ultimately happened is not in dispute, but speaks to the nature of the crime, which is that the defendant did not just kill the family pet, but also that its head was wrapped in a plastic bag and it was hidden under a blanket. And the court finds that these facts are significant because they reflect something that was discussed in the NGI examination, which is deception. Certainly, Ms. Sonnemann would benefit by having an expunction. However, given the unpredictability of the violent behavior, the court does not believe that society would benefit. In other words, that society would be harmed by the expunction. So that request is going to be denied. Ms. Sonnemann has been sober for 7 months, and she's performed well on pretrial release. The court has considered probation and is going to reject it because it believes it will unduly depreciate the seriousness of the offense. So for all these reasons, this is the sentence of the court. The court will sentence the defendant, Kielee Sonnemann, to 4 years imprisonment, 1 year of initial confinement, 3 years of extended supervision. That will be imposed and stayed for 3 years of probation. As a condition of probation, the court is going to impose a custodial sentence of 9 months. And the court is imposing that sentence for the following reasons. First, the sentence is needed to reflect the seriousness of the offense, to provide just punishment, and to provide deterrence. The state has argued for unspecified prison, which is very general, but essentially starts at 1 year or more and goes up to the statutory max. The defense has requested a non-custodial sentence. The court does believe that a sentence between 9 and 12 months is appropriate. If it sentenced Ms. Sonnemann to a term in the Wisconsin prison system, most likely it would be reduced by 25%. And so taking all of these factors into consideration, the court does believe that a sentence of 9 months jail as condition time for her probation is sufficient but not greater than necessary to accomplish the goals of sentencing. With respect to how that sentence will be imposed, the court will order that that entire sentence be served as straight time. Ms. Sonnemann will not be eligible for Huber release during those 9 months.
All right, still joining me for this hour is our experts to help break all of this down, trial attorneys Michael Jafer and Rob Corbett. Rob, let me start with you. The judge really highlighting all of the reasons for her decision. At the end of the day, 9 months in custody. That is not subject to getting out early release, as I just understood. It's straight time. Plus, then she's going to be on probation because she wants everyone to know that this is a serious crime. She doesn't want to give probation and undervalue that. And she said society would be harmed if I expunge her record, so I'm not going to do that either. How do you think she did, the judge, with this sentence?
I think the judge did an excellent job of laying out her reasoning. It is a harsh sentence, obviously, especially taking into account 18-year-old clean record. But the term the judge used multiple times, the trauma that was inflicted upon this family. Not only the trauma inflicted upon this family, but this is a violation of trust. She knew the victim's family in terms of Batman's family. She had babysat that family in terms of for approximately 4 years. This was someone they trusted to be in their home, someone they trusted to look over their children. That was violated. And she said, if there was one place above all of where we think we should be safe and secure, and that's going to be within our own home, that's going to be the people that we trust to watch over her children, watch over our children. She violated this. It was a heinous act performed upon that dog in terms of stabbing him multiple times. Her allocution in terms of when she had opportunity to speak to the judge, she was not as forthcoming as she could have been in terms of trying to explain this. So although we can say the defense attorney in me says that, look, that's a harsh sentence. If I was the defense attorney in this case, it is an appropriate sentence as laid out, as the facts laid out by the judge.
Right, and I do think two things. Number one, it bothers me that when she spoke, and she's not really a defendant as much as she's now a convicted felon because she did enter a plea, she herself said, Sonnemann said, I don't know why I did it, which is hard to grasp, right? And that's a concern for the future. But also the judge did say this, kicking the dog, tying up the dog in a plastic bag over its head, hidden under a blanket, that all of these things, Michael, are indicative of deception. I think the judge also focused on that.
I think she did focus on that. And also, you know, there's maybe a little bit of a schism in the law on this, because the fact that we're all surprised that something like this would even happen in terms of the facts, I think that if you look at it in a different way, if you look at it as, let's just say she had not killed the dog, she had maybe taken a gun and just waved it in front of the kids and said, I'm gonna kill somebody, and then she went home harmlessly, she would have went to jail for a longer time. She would have went to jail for longer than 9 years, right? If she'd taken the scissors and pretended to stab one of the kids but didn't do it, and then cut their hair and then held them at knife point and then gotten arrested after that, she would have went to jail for a longer time. So the fact that she went to jail just for 9 months for actually murdering a dog, which some of these families, you know, the dog is like a child, like a member of the family, and she only went to jail for 9 months. I think she got off easy. I think the mental health component is a big component of it. And the judge even said she even had a breakdown that day and she didn't remember what happened. I think this is a troubled person. The law's not going to fix it. 9 months, 9 years, 9 decades won't fix it. She's going to be dealing with this for the rest of her life. And hopefully when she gets out eventually, she doesn't harm somebody else or harm herself. We'll see what happens.